Hello there, friends. Before we jump into it, if you like what we do here on cPDH.guide, the YouTube, and you want to support us in a free way, because, you know, that's what friends do, hit that like, hit that subscribe, even share the damn thing. All right, on to the show. Hello, everybody out there in the internet, especially you Pauper Commander players. This is probably one of the rare, bonus videos that we do on the channel. Mostly it's like stats and all that stuff, but 2023 has been such a big, outstanding year for the meta, the cPDH meta of the PDH format, that my man Jonathan, especially since Jonathan wasn't able to make it out for the last quarterly update, my man Jonathan and I wanted to reach out to the internet, to you guys, and discuss our observations of 2023, focusing on 2024, you know, things that we've observed in the meta, trends that we've seen over the last few months, and where we either predict or suspect or otherwise lament or what have you, prognosticate, is that, yeah, whatever, for the format next year. So I figured this would be a fun opportunity. My man Jonathan here is a extremely knowledgeable brewer, crafter of all things turbo. Of course, you build other stuff too. I'm putting you in a box. I shouldn't do that. So first off, you've been busy as hell. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good. You guys can get the full, unfiltered Australian viewpoint of this format now.
Well, Australia's good, right? Because they just announced a Summer of Magic kind of thing. So Australia's getting its MTG focus from the mothership. Have you heard about all that?
Oh, no, I haven't heard about that.
Oh, yeah. So there's a whole event that they've got planned, complete with merchandise, gear, a sweet-looking playmat, I think it has a wallaby or something like that, or, whatever you guys call it.
Yep.
So yeah, Australia's getting some love from the big WotC, and means you guys are doing it right down there, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that'll be good. That'll be fun.
Have you had the chance to play locally? I know previously when we talked that there was still much an online meta. The in-person events hadn't taken off really so much. Has that changed any?
Look, I've gone to my local for cEDH, but there's no proper commander over there. I've tried to introduce it, but most people are just interested in cEDH, full competitive, spend $20,000 on it, that kind of thing.
I mean, if you got it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have opal mines and, gold mines in your backyard. So, I mean, why not?
I guess that's how it works. Yep.
Well, you don't have oil. I don't think you have oil. I don't know. So you don't have any.
But when we want to buy a Gaia's Cradle, we just go out with a pickaxe, get some gold, and, hop down to the store.
That's what you do. This is fun. We got to do this more often. Right on. So, of the games, like I said, I know you've been busy here in the recent history, but prior to that, you had played quite a bit. What were you focused on developing this year? And then, kind of how did you see that interacting, the things that you were brewing? How did you see that interacting with the things that you were competing against?
Yeah. So as you probably know, my focus is combo decks. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at every single combo in the format, what synergizes well, what commanders we have. Mm-hmm. And I've been focusing on Malcolm Red recently. I think Malcolm Red has had a bit of a rise this past year, especially in the last half, where we've even seen it won a tournament there, Malcolm Kedis. Mm-hmm. So my focus has been making the deck as fast as possible. So I went Malcolm Roguerack for the Xrlylyl speed and trying to go faster, basically going down to turn 1, 2 kind of win lines. Just because as the more sets come out, we get lots of commons, lots of interaction is being printed. Things like Go for the Throat, not really that new, but it is definitely, it's there. We're getting more and more interaction. So combo decks kind of have to speed up to get past it. Mm-hmm. So that's just what I've been doing, just trying to make decks faster and faster.
And you are, correct me if I'm wrong, you are the, maybe not the first person, but maybe even the first person to focus on Malcolm Roger. I think you're the first, right?
I think so. No one else was playing Malcolm Rogrek here in the online meta, and there was no public decks on Mox Field before mine.
So as far as we can tell, you're at the forefront in that development, and quite honestly, so the next thing I'm going to say is not meant to diminish the deck in any way, shape, or form. But from what in my observations, because I've gotten got by it once or twice too, it has the propensity to be so blistering fast that in unknown metas, you have a great opportunity of stealing wins because nobody knows exactly what you're doing or how fast you're actually going. So that's not meant to diminish what it can do. You know, you can steal some wins, I suspect. Am I off?
I think in any open meta, any type of deck can steal wins like that if it's unknown. Malcolm decks, especially Malcolm Red, very well known currently in especially in organized meta. Even in open meta, because the combos are stolen straight from cEDH. Got Reckless Fireweaver, turn into a pirate, win, and all the other effects like that. So people do know what you're doing, but because you're just so fast, they just have nothing in their hand to stop you. And the deck runs interaction as well, in case they do have something.
Does it experience the same type of redundancy that Malcolm Kedis does?
So the difference with Malcolm Kedis is that Malcolm Kedis can run a bit more of the more expensive cards because it's got that mana acceleration that Malcolm Rogrek doesn't have kind of in the late game. But Malcolm Rograt's not really looking to go late game. Malcolm Kedis can go both ways. You can go fast, and then if it doesn't work out, or just go slowly, build up your treasures, build up your mana, build up the advantage, and kind of win from there. So that's the two differences from the deck. People will probably say Malcolm Kedis is just a bit better because it does both things. Malcolm Rograk only does one thing, but it does that one thing really well. So I'm pretty happy with Malcolm Rograk.
Yeah. Not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's a good snapshot of the reason why I wanted Jonathan to talk about the thing that he's playing is because here lately in the last quarter 4 of 2023, there's been a lot of conversations about people's play experiences and how they're approaching the game, but also how that applies to what they're seeing in pods for their opponents. So that's why I wanted to address, the types of things that Jonathan plays. So knowing that you play that, what are you experiencing when you sit down at pods? Like what types of decks are you seeing?
I am pretty much seeing, the main, top competitors. Commander, you got Abdal, Gretchen. You got other Malcolm variants. I've been seeing Malcolm White recently as well. In terms of just open play, just gathering around, I'm seeing a lot of aggro, some like Loyal Subordinate, Indulging Patrician. There's that new card that sounds very French. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Bartolome
of Sack Outlet.
Yeah,
that
Bartolome,
one. Yeah, I've been seeing that a few, and it's a pretty good deck. Something that you kind of do have to be scared of if you just let that thing stick around because it can get quite big. But there's been a lot of Malcolm v. Malcolm. I feel like I'm the Malcolm Rograk, and then I see a Malcolm Kedis or a Malcolm Breaches, and I think even Malcolm Togo is getting some light as well. Like anything Malcolm Red is it's there.
So yeah, if you're a cEDH player that's looking for, I was going to say something cheaper, but like something more of a challenge, which you may or may not as a cEDH player want more of a challenge. I don't know how, or if you're a new player that's wanting to come in and explore the format and looking for air quotes best, Anybody that knows me knows how I feel. I mean, there's performance data that suggests some things are better than others, sure. But like, if you're looking to get into the format, Malcolm plus red something, partner, will seek to get you in that direction, depending on your play style. I know that Malcolm Dargo is something that hasn't really been updated here lately. Not that there probably are any updates for that. I wouldn't recommend picking that up, if you're new, because that's apparently I'm the only one that can have success with it.
It's a little bit of confusion with those two commanders, because sometimes you want to focus on Dargo, sometimes you want to focus on Malcolm, and then the deck building gets a little weird.
Mm-hmm. So trying to find that crossover and then knowing when to pivot and all that stuff. It's
balance.
So Malcolm Breaches, Malcolm Kedis, Malcolm Roger. Am I missing one?
Malcolm Togo, that's the other red one. Basically, any red partner, and it all works.
Yeah. It's a great entry into the format to kind of get something of a consistent power level and expectation at the table, yada, yada, yada. So I just had it where I was going to pivot with that, and I can't recall. So moving into, so you're seeing those types of decks that you're playing against. Is there something you're not seeing that you wish you saw more of? That's what I was going to go with.
Maybe the slower kind of grindy combo decks out there. Like, I am seeing a bit of Gretchen, but things like Tadiova, the really old one, and Laylor Weaver, I have seen it. One player has picked it up, and I have seen it a little bit, but still not enough, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Those old commanders, even things like Ghost Tormod, haven't really seen. I would love to see some more Ghost in the format.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's such a powerful commander, but no one's playing it. I mean, all the background commanders, there's a lot of powerful ones in this format.
That's actually a good segue, because not necessarily the old combo commanders, which, the one guy who has picked up Weavers is, I checked it this morning, as of this video, has a 74% win rate over 8 games. So I suspect that to drop a little bit, but if he stays on the same trajectory, he'll wind up on Bodarn's top player list in no time. So mid-range, I know that that's not necessarily something that you like to wade into. I don't even know what your perspective on the archetype is, but I do know that quite a few players, because during the summer updates for the stats metagame report, we had noticed that there was a failing. That's tough. A lack of performance. That's the best way to, which is also failing, right? For the mid-range and to an extent control lists, but not knowing exactly what that really meant as far as how the players were building, deck construction, pod composition, not knowing exactly why that was the case. We just kind of like observed it, noted it, and moved forward. And then it's kind of become a glaring thing for 2023 because Chris over at One More Game, who has taken the data and done his own little analysis and put some charts together, showed that there is no shortage in popularity for mid-range decks, mid-range construction, bringing those to tournaments, bringing that to open play. But there's a low conversion rate. That's a nice way of saying a low success rate. So there's a low conversion rate, between the popularity showing up to the pod and then the output, the success in winning the pod. So is that something that I'm sure you've observed as well? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, definitely. So one thing I think is the failing of the mid-range archetype is actually just the way we've been calling decks mid-range, because certain decks can play for that mid-game, right? We've got grindy decks like Gretchen, for example, where it's just got an activated ability on the commander. You don't have to turbo out a combo. You can grind yourself all the way to turn 13 and then win with a combo then. That's technically a mid-range deck, wouldn't you agree? But we've been listing it as combo because that's its win-con. And then typical mid-range decks, in quotation marks there, I'm doing quotation marks, you can't see me, but typical mid-range decks that we label mid-range and we add it into the data is normally decks without those traditional combo win-cons. And the win-cons are more things like combat damage with a single creature, or maybe some spread damage with like Crypt Rat, Gary, and Pestilence, things like that. So not things that just win the game outright, but win the game over a long time if they're not interacted with, which is just the problem with when we're naming things mid-range and combo, is that some combo decks are actually trying to play for the mid-game and they're not trying to go as fast as possible, which is the opposite of what I'm building, obviously, where I'm just trying to go as fast as possible. There's no mid-range in my decks.
So I'm actually glad you brought this up, because that's another thing that we've been focused on this year is the semantics of the descriptors that we're using for, how we're describing our experience within the game. I said this in the last video. I'll say it again here. It's 2023. It's this format, or this meta of this format has been booming for 2.5 years straight. We still don't have clear-cut definitions of archetypes that are experienced. So we've gone and put some rudimentary stuff up: aggro, combo, control, Voltron. Well, not really Voltron yet. Combo. We've put these 4 main categories up, and they're basically loose guidelines that seek to kind of drive people in directions as far as their own deck's development. But with regard to like Storm or Stacks or Voltron or mid-range, like these are concepts that exist. I mean, even Tempo to some degree, these are concepts that exist, but they're so nuanced that unless you have a foundation of what these broader strokes are, unless you have some solidity, some concretedness with those definitions, that it's really difficult to get into the minutia between the lines. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it's still an ever-changing process, and we're periodically talking about this behind the scenes at .guide with each other in conversations and stuff like that. So rest assured, maybe 2024 will be the year that we have a better case study. So I know you focus on combo, but I think I recall you brewing other archetypes before. Am I?
Yeah, definitely. I've worked on so-called mid-range and aggro. I've been loving aggro. I've been playing loyal subordinate as well. That's been fun, just burning the table to death. Voltron is where I tend to not make. I'm not a fan of Voltron. So if anyone else wants to make Voltron, that's fine with you. I'm just not. I wouldn't touch it. I won't be that great at building those types of decks. But mid-range is definitely something I've been building, and what I've been doing is I've been kind of aiming the deck for a more control base, and then with a combo finish. So I don't know if my decks go into the data, if they get called combo, that's fine. I'm making it as a mid-range build, just with a combo to win like turn 12. I'm not looking for a fast win with these decks.
In the vernacular express, like if you're in the Sanctuary, then you already know that they have. I lovingly call it the Breakfast Club. They don't call it that, but I think it's a great name for it anyway. Plug in one for the Breakfast Club over at the Sanctuary. But the Sanctuary, quite often without any planning or what have you, early in the morning, say between like 7-8 o'clock Eastern time to like maybe even as late as lunch Eastern time, you'll have a group of people in there discussing, and not to say that doesn't happen to other servers. I've just only seen it really on Sanctuary. So if you're part of the Sanctuary server, you can hear some of these discussions talking specifically to this and other issues. Right now, what Jonathan just described, we're kind of calling slow combo. So fast combo, slow combo. Abdel is probably the flagship commander for the slow combo stuff.
Yep.
I do. So I have a question for you, and you've already partially answered it, but it gives you the opportunity to kind of think on it directly. So I'm of the mindset, because I too, in the last month or so, have been building almost exclusively mid-range and control slower, decks. So normally I play either combo or aggro or something like that. But I've been brewing something a little bit, slower and more controlling, that sort of thing, because I am of the mind that if we've got hundreds of man hours, or person hours put into the development of combo, and then aggro has been developed on the heels of combo, so maybe not as much time developed on combo. Aggro hasn't had that much time, but aggro is definitely being fleshed out more concretely than the other two archetype, control and mid-range. So the perspective I've been taking when building the mid-range decks is, as a combo player, what do I not want to see? That's a rudimentary way to look at it, and it's very synthesized and simple, but how do you feel about looking at it from that perspective? Is that the perspective that you use? And if not, what perspective are you taking on how you're putting these mid-range decks together?
I think that's a good perspective when you've already built the deck and you're looking to mulligan against a combo deck.
Mm-hmm.
You go, all right, I see a Malcolm Rogue rack against me. What do I want in my opening hand? Probably 2 pieces of removal. I'll mulligan to that, something like that. But I think when you're deck building, you will already have more than 2 pieces of well, hopefully, if you're a good deck builder, you would have more than 2 pieces of removal in your deck, or some way to interact with combos.
Yeah. It's brought up it's opened up a huge can of worms about how to approach the thing, even so much so that some of the conversation is revolved around. So if I say staple, everybody knows what the concept of what a staple is. But if I say bomb, for the lack of a better term, what does a bomb look like for those mid-range decks? And that's been somewhat synthesized down to a higher costed creature that has a spell-like ability attached to it. So that way you're basically getting double on your, not card selection, but card advantage. Resource advantage would probably be more appropriate. You're getting double, out of that investment. And even then, there's a more immediate impact, like a Gary is the first thing that comes to mind, of I deploy Gary and then I instantaneously have a trigger on the stack that I can yield some advantage of, versus something that has an attack trigger, which I can't think of something off my mind. There's actually I wish I could remember the name of it, a red saga that its first ability is, now it's 5 mana, so it would be your top in. You pay 5 mana, you steal a creature, so you're basically threatening a creature, stealing that. The next one is it pumps your team, and then the next one it turns into an evasive 3/3 trampler. So that's kind of an example. I don't know if that type of card will be successful, but that is the avenue in which the more modern mid-range deck construction, not just myself, but others as well, who are kind of focusing on. What do you think about, anything that I just said there?
Well, one thing I want to talk about is how I think mid-range as a whole, you need some good card advantage, either in the 99 or in the command zone, and probably preferably in the command zone, because that you have access to for the whole game. So I'm looking at things like Severus, that's been shown recently. It had some tournament results as well, where it's just such a good grindy commander. You can just outlast everyone in the table. And once everyone has no resources, that's where you just deploy the Gary and win, right?
Yep.
Life gain is a huge thing as well. Of course, Grey Merchant of Apostle got the life gain attached to it. Anything else with life gain, just making the game go longer, that's just good for the mid-range decks. So I think when building your deck, you got to be thinking about card advantage, the grind, and maybe some life gain as well.
Oh yeah, so because we're talking about so you're not talking specifically, but you're implying so tempo, right? If I remember correctly, the average turns for combo decks in the open meta was 9 turns. It was the same for aggro in the open meta, and then it was turn 10 and then turn 12 for mid-range and control respectively. So that gives you somewhat of a blueprint about what Jonathan just said about that temporal aspect of, can you shut down combo and aggro early enough to buy you a turn or another turn? Like how many, it's not buying turns, but I think that elicits the
How long
point.
can you, get the game going a bit longer so those mid-range decks can succeed a bit.
Mm-hmm. And I think the way that the knee-jerk reaction to that was, if I play early removal in in the first 3 turns, creating a tempo play on, say, that Malcolm player or what have you, then I have effectively bought myself 2 turns in commander tax with land drops and all that stuff. Now, of course, rituals and all that kind of skew that a bit, depending on whether or not they're being played. But just serving as an example. Now, it would be impossible as the sole mid-range deck in a combo pod to sit there and snuff out each player, creating that tempo loss. So you're going to have to lean on your compatriots, as it were. So just...
I think the main thing is if you're playing a mid-range deck, you don't just want to be 1-for-1ing everything. You want to run cards that can kill multiple things at once. Things like Echoing Decay, where you can get 2 Malcolms at the same time, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Just Edict effects, where you can wipe 1 creature from each board, also really good. Things that you don't go 1-for-1ing yourself. Like just running Go for the Throat is fine, but you don't want to just do that turn 2, because then your other 2 opponents just get their free commander and you couldn't cast your commander because you were casting Go for the Throat. So things like that, where you want to save those single target removals for when it actually matters and not really in the early game.
So scam effects have been really popular in the last month. I can't remember the name of any particular Grave Flicker, but casting a fleshbag, putting the trigger on the stack, targeting it with a Grave Flicker, sacrificing the fleshbag, bringing back the fleshbag, like 4 mana value, right? So that has been extremely popular, and I feel like, and I even said this to another member of the community, that I felt that lines like that center around those like fleshbag type creatures kind of seek to be the preeminent example of like that control-y part of that mid-range plan. I don't know if that will prove to remain correct, but at least that was my gut feeling a month or so ago. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I like that. And that doesn't just have to stop at mid-range. You can run those Edict effects in an aggro deck, and with all those like Not Dead Yet and all those other kind of Grave Flicker effects, you can run them in pretty much any deck, because just hitting all your opponents for basically 1 card is just always good.
Righteous. Let's switch gears a little bit and just kind of briefly talk about tournaments. I think we had 8. So 3. So it had to be. So it's 3 sanctuary events, 1 RIW, 1 common cause, and then was it 2 or 3 riches to rags? Can you recall?
I don't know.
I think it was 3. I think it was 3.
I'm stuck in Australia here, so
we don't hold that against you. Maybe a little bit. So we went from 1 tournament at the end of last year, and like at the very end of last year, October, November, riches to rags, to 7 or 8, which I can't recall offhand, what that is exactly. But I mean, that's a market increase in the number of tournaments. Now, you got to participate in one sanctuary event, or was it two?
One sanctuary event, yes.
Yeah, and part of that is timing, as we have pointed to several times. Jonathan is on the other side of the planet, so online tournaments are like his best shot. And Bobby over there at Sanctuary has been gracious enough to try to move the times around. One of those, he was trying to capture Europe, so if he tried to focus on Europe with one and then Australia with the other. Ironically, the Australians showed up and the Europeans didn't. So I suspect that more Australian intended tournaments would be in the future. So yeah. So that's an interesting perspective to have. The fact that you are on the opposite side of the world, the entire Earth. What does that mean for you? Like, if somebody else is in your position, I mean, obviously I know more about your circumstance, so you having necessarily the availability is one thing, but if we assume, unbounded availability, what do these tournaments mean for you? I mean, you've woken up at what, 6 o'clock in the morning, I think. Is that what it was?
5 o'clock. Yeah. For the tournament.
So, so that, so I expected 6 o'clock to be good, but 5 o'clock is better. So, what I'm pointing to is your commitment. It meant that much to participate in the thing. So you did the thing. So do you have anything for players like yourself that are stuck on a continent in the middle of nowhere? I'm just messing with you, man.
I mean, you just have to learn to wake up early, really. I mean, you know how Bobby does the leagues before he started the tournament? I had to wake up at 4 o'clock for that one. Yeah. And I did attend them because I just like playing Magic, and when I have some time, I just go online, play some Magic, go back to sleep, and yeah. It has been quite busy for me recently because I've been working 6 days a week, so it's hard to find time to play Magic. But eventually, I'll hope to get some more games in, and hopefully don't have to wake up at 4 o'clock anymore, but we'll see when the next Sanctuary tournament and all the other online tournaments get held as well.
Well, it's my goal, now, not specifically in 2024, but I mean, hell, why not? It's my goal to do what I can from my little Fargo, North Dakota basement, to inspire LGSs all over the world to pick up this format. And I'm hopeful, if you've got a tournament that's happening, I don't know how far Australia, how long it takes to drive around the thing, but if you've got to drive, a couple hours to go participate in a tournament, I would love for you to have the opportunity to turn that down, So it's my goal to kind of inspire that for, everybody around the world. And, you never know, it might happen next year. So, all right.
Yeah, we got to reach out to the Australian community a bit more, I guess. Guess that's my job.
That's, if I knew exactly how to do that, I mean, you guys have such a weird language barrier. That's good. That's good. No, but I mean, you bring up a great point. Community outreach would probably go far to get that done. All right, we'll put that on the list. All right, so that's a nice little fluffy segment. Getting back to the serious business of cPDH in 2024. So I did a little bit of a dive on the data. So in this last month, we figured out a way to, because we were tracking different attributes about the commanders, whether they were pairs or partners or what have you. We were tracking them. Well, it actually was Bodarn tracking them, but he did it in kind of a Bodarn way. So there was always an intention to go back and scrub the data to correct all of that stuff. And that was back when there was, 200, 300 games. Now there's like 850. So every day more games get added and you got to retroactively scrub all of that stuff. Well, I kind of put a ping out to the team, and between a couple of us, we found out a more formulaic way to change all those values according to those commanders, and we labeled them as a creature, partner, or background. Obviously, the commander creature for the backgrounds is not a background, but like it works, right? So we fundamentally wanted to answer, because Jonathan and I and Puzzle and I, or well, we three were kind of talking about this via chat, and Jonathan and I here. You would have an expectation based on the things you were seeing in the meta as you were playing in pods and what have you, that partners were the overwhelmingly like more popular thing, and partners would probably can't claim a larger market share, than background, than regular singular creatures, Viscopa, Tatiova, Gretchen, yada, yada, yada. But my surprise, actually, to all of our surprise, I think Jonathan actually guessed it. So maybe not to Jonathan's surprise, Mr. Know-It-All over there. But soul creatures actually claimed the market share for wins for 2023. So I did two numbers. I'm not going to flash this up anywhere. If hard pressed, I can put these as links, these little graphs as links in the video. But for all open and organized gameplay, the creatures won. This is all wins. 66.8, but 67% of the time, those wins were represented by a singular creature. Backgrounds came in over partners at 18.4%, and then partners at 14.8%. Now, comparatively, all organized. Okay, for organized play only. So what that means right now is tournaments. So all of the tournament submitted data, creatures were still on top. This time at a greater market share of 72.8, so 73%. Backgrounds at 19.2%, and then partners coming in and last again at just 8%. So in organized play, you see an increase in soul creature success, and increase in background success as well. Now, this is irrespective of what representation actually occurred. There's no way. Well, there's probably a way that I could track to see what was represented. In fact, I think that might actually be in the Q4 report, the 2023 report that Bodon just put in. So I'll drop another link to that in the description, so that way you can compare the values that I just stated versus the popularity of those in tournaments in all of the data. So what is your hot takes based on these figures here?
Well, obviously, our commanders have to be uncommon, which means we're getting a good uncommon. It's quite hard, first of all. We've got over 600 uncommons to sift through to find a commander. When we do find that one commander, we like to play it a lot. Things like backgrounds and partners. Backgrounds are relatively new, I would say. Partners have been there for a while, and partners have been doing really well. So well that I think that the reason we're getting such a low win rate with partners is because pods are probably consisting of 4 partner decks. And then when you have that one creature deck, for example, Tatiova Gretchen has been doing really well. I know I saw Scholar of Ages has been doing well as well. Not necessarily in tournaments, but at least in open play.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that, really powerful, just one by itself commanders, and they are taking games. And then the rest of the pod, who knows, could be just full of backgrounds and partners, which is why the win rate is just so low, because there's, for every one partner that wins, you got 3 that loses.
Yeah, and I've always wanted to kind of do some research on these metrics here, because I haven't heard it in a while, and I don't know if you've ever heard it, but in various places across the internet, as nerds do, you hear things like, well, play partners are backgrounds because, you know, you that one less card, you have a better likelihood of drawing whatever, you know, like some argument akin to deck thinning, or, you know, why have one card in the command zone when you can have 2 cards in the command zone, you know, things of that nature. So I'm glad that this, I mean, I had no control over it, but I'm glad that this ended up the way that it did, because it does give credence to basically play what you want to, you know, loosely. Yeah. Because
I find something good and stick with it.
Right. And to your point, some of these, like I looked up Gretchen specifically because I was going to put up I do remember so Gretchen has won 39 games out of like 100 and something, right? Not all puzzle box, but probably mostly puzzle box. So, so Gretchen, with its 39% win rate, I think that's what I said, 39. Yeah, or no, 39 games, only made up 1% of the market share for the single creatures that won in 2023. So even Gretchen, with all of its success, only makes up 1% of those successes, you know, total. So I thought that was an interesting thing. But then you have like the Viscopas of the world, like you said, Scholar of the Ages. I think people are still experimenting. What's that Azorius one, ETB? Yeah, it's lost on me. But yeah, like there's like I'm playing Conrad again, Carter Doomscage, which is a Doomscape Doomscourge. There you go.
And don't forget Third Path Iconoclast. That's a standalone commander that's doing very well.
So yeah, like the list goes on, and I guess now that I'm like saying the names out loud, it's not so surprising that mono creatures, solo creatures are have the winning market share that they do. So in 2024, it's safe to say that you can, like Jonathan said earlier, pick anything that you feel like is good, stick with it, develop it, and win with it. Sweet. All right. I promise folks out there in the internet, I'll keep this one at around an hour. We normally bust time. We're at 42 minutes. So,
okay.
So let's talk about 2024 specific. If I don't think that anything will be downshifted that will require. I'm hopeful that we won't get some sort of new background, you know, kind of something to make mine and 9 other people's life miserable for, you know, months. Of course, if you just make them legal, but I digress. So if we assume that there's nothing going to be printed that's like game changing, and there's going to be somewhat of a status quo in the repeat performance, I wish I would have run this metric now that I thought about it, because PDH has, well, I don't know if PDH as a whole has a problem. cPDH has a bit of a time lag problem in the fact that commanders that were recently released, they'll go through this spike of activity of people trying to brew things and what have you. And more often than not, and I don't have the percentages on that, but more often than not, People will just blow through their, whatever ideas, concepts that they have, experience some success, no success, whatever, and then they'll drop the deck. And quite often that commander won't get revisited for like 6 months, 8 months later. And then you'll see a renaissance of that particular commander. So there's a 6 to 8 month time lag with commanders. So I guess the question to you is, I mean, I know you mentioned Bartolome, which is relatively new. I think that came out with Eldraine in September. Bartolome is probably one of those exceptions where people have picked it up and have some success with it, but like, I don't expect to see it at its full potential until next year based on the aforementioned timeline. Is there anything that you saw released this year that has made big waves, big splashes?
I think when we get new commons, like focusing on the commons, not really the uncommons, when we get new commons, normally the decks that are already good get better. And it doesn't really help the decks that aren't like the more fringe or just the non-meta decks at all. They don't really get there. Some uncommons, I think recently I haven't seen anything I'm impressed with, really, with the recent sets. Not really any uncommons.
Because Teshar was this year. Phyrexian Censor was this year. Bartolome, like I said, was this year. Now, I bring that up because I would equate them. I would make them equivalent. So Censor has had a buttload of hours poured into it by cEDH folks and cPDH folks. Same thing with Teshar as well. While those decks have had some success, no one would consider those two commanders to be broken. And I think Bartolome fits into that category as well. We also had a Dimir downshift a couple months ago as well. I've seen a couple people play it, but it really hasn't broken through. So, but those three are probably, out of all the commanders that I can think of at the moment that were released this year, I haven't seen much outside of those, and even they really haven't, excelled, to a point of exceptional. Not to say that they're guaranteed to get better next year, but if trends being what trends are, like, yeah. So
we just need one player to come in and look at Tasha and go, "Oh, I could do something with this."
Absolutely. So there is a little bit of a player shortage in cPDH. We'll work on that, I promise. I was just trying to, like, what would be? I wish I could pick this out of thin air. What would be a good example of a highly successful deck? I don't know exactly how successful, but Kadira was Kadira this year?
I think so. I don't know. Probably.
Too many cards, man. Too many cards.
Too many commons, too many uncommons to sift through.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was trying to find something to project into next year, but it's hard to predict. The Weavers example, like nobody was on Weave. Well, nobody. You and I both had tinkered with Weavers independently. I don't know how many games, how many reps you got on your versions that you were tinkering with, but I only got a couple myself. But like that doesn't in no means mean a resurgence of that deck back into the forefront. It's only been like the last month or so where that deck has been getting some like serious reps, and also I think its build, from my build, it's like 39 cards different. So I assume it to be at least 20 to 30 cards different from the historical builds as well. So for all intent and purposes,
it's running a lot of interaction, lots and lots of interactions. So it's going more on that mid-range path that I was talking about, where you control the early game. Late game, win with combo.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think 2024 is going to be I'm excited to see where it's going to go. I'm hopeful that this mid-range circumstance, let's say it that way, gets figured out. I know we have a tournament coming up. Bobby's will probably be, Sanctuary PDH will probably be February, if I'm projecting. That's a 100% guess. So we've got like a month or so, and one remastered set, and I guess we'll have at least one set, potentially that one, depending on when, if the tournament is in February, if it's late February, we'll have an actual set and a remastered set. So there's opportunity to juice that that meta up going into the new year. But I suspect, I know with all the focus on our end, players, brewers, all that stuff on mid-range in the last month, probably continuing into the next month, that I expect to see a popularity surge. So what's being represented in the pods to jump for the mid-range archetype. I don't know what that necessarily means, because some of the people that are experimenting are combo players or aggro or what have you. So as those players experiment, they can't play two decks at once. So are we going to see a plummet in combo? Like, are we going to show up to a tournament and like, well, even then, the common cause had a healthy mid-range participation. I think it was like 30-40%. And I even think one of the sanctuaries this year had a 30 or 40% representation in mid-range. And I think even in person, between both one of the events in Philly and then another, the RIW event, I think there was a healthy mid-range showing as well. So what I was going to say is, like, maybe we'll see an increased showing in mid-range participation going into the next thing, but that would be status quo-ish, right?
I think we need to see an increase in win rate with that archetype, not in popularity.
There we go. Maybe we'll just everybody play mid-range, and then you'll get 100%. Yeah, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, right? Right on. So as we develop, do you see I don't foresee any trouble on the horizon. It's all opportunity. We had a banger year for the format. I remember saying to three of the other RC members in an interview that was originally aired on Connoisseurs, that I was like, man, I don't know what it is, but I feel it. 2024 is going to be a great year for PDH, or something to that effect. And man, I hate being right, but I love being right, you know? So I'm hopeful that 2024 will give us that gas as well. So let's seek to close this out. Well, before we do, is there anything from the meta report analysis or anything like that you didn't, since your availability and my availability as well, I can't put it all on you, but our availabilities didn't line up and you weren't able to participate in that particular video. Did you have anything from that report or that analysis that you wanted to touch on?
No, but one thing I want to say is that 2024, I do think Malcolm Red will still be as popular, or even more popular, because we did just get Sunshot Militia, another artifact pinger, which just makes that even more consistent, even more better than it ever was.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've been eyeing that for TPI as well, but I'm on the fence.
Oh yeah,
because yeah, I don't know how knack combo-y it is, you know, so I'm on the fence. But yeah, the militia has some upside, to say the least. They just take away that sorcery speed clause, then, you know, right?
Yeah, that's it's only lacking right now.
So yeah, I think we can move to the cleanup step. Sweet.
Yep.
So, that's the question I was going to ask you. Historically, you brew combo. You've touched on some mid-range. Do you have any intention to jump on board with these other combo players that are focused on mid-range? Would you be willing to play a mid-range deck, or are you just going to be like, nah, bro, I'm gonna Malcolm Roger, till I die? Where are you at with that?
I would brew a mid-range deck, but in terms of playing it, I would probably just stick with my turbo stuff.
Because there's a 9-point differential between combo and mid-range as far as tournament performance. So it's kind of a sucky thing to say, but combo has the, advantage. So if you show up with a solo creature that does combo, you have a pretty good success rate, right? Player skill to be determined. Right on. All right. I think we'll close this out. Do you have socials now, or are you just on the Discords?
Just on the Discords.
So it's I can never remember, and I've got my streamer mode enabled. It's XRLYLY. No, L. There you go.
Yes. Yep, got it.
It's an X with a couple of R's and a couple of Y's and a couple of L's. Right on. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Feel free to ping Jonathan everywhere. In fact, not everybody should do this, but you should reach out to him if you're interested in building. I don't want to say off the wall. I don't want to say strange, eclectic. There you go. Everything from Deskit to Malcolm Roger. Like, there's even one more that you're known for, right? No?
Loyal subordinate, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because you're a co-author of that list. With
Lotad, the other Australian.
Yeah, if you like to go fast, like to slick back your hair and throw caution to the wind, you should reach out. I'm quite sure Jonathan would answer any and all questions, regardless of time of night. He often stays up late and gets up early. He said it himself.
Yep.
Maybe if you ask nicely, he'll be incentivized to do that for you as well. So, all right, my man, we need to get some games in. I mean, of course, not right now. I got to go to bed, but so
time zones.
All right, brother, man. Until the next time, I think our next one will be in 2024, unless we get a wild hair up our butt and produce something in the next 3 weeks. Probably not. All right.
Christmas gameplay or something like that.
Ooh, cPDH guide guide gameplay. I don't know. Not many people are doing edited gameplay out there. So maybe not. All right, we'll find out. All right, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, Smizmars and whatever. Until the next time, 2024, it's coming. It's on the doorstep. We'll see you then.
Yep. Merry Christmas, everyone.